Yes, hello everyone. Very good morning. Very good morning, everyone. Yes, how many people joined me? Yes. Hello. Am I audible to all of you? Yes, everyone. Am I audible? Hello, Ashwini. Good morning. Yes. Okay. So am I audible? Good. Very good. So those who haven't taken subscription, please take the subscription of Unacademy. You have all the options, and it's very much beneficial for you. For that, you can use my code HARSHV10. You will get the flat 10% discount. Yes, so please subscribe to Unacademy for more benefits. Okay. Yes, Panupriya, hello, hello. Preeti, hello. Yes, where are others? Yes, so in the last lecture, a quick recap of last lecture. In the last lecture, we discussed about NAM, that is non-alignment movement. Yes, in the NAM, we mentioned that India was one of the founding members, that is Nehru, Tito, Sukarno, and Nasser. These four people played an important role in non-alignment movement. Earlier we mentioned that how non-alignment movement formed. It was not a sudden move. 1947, India took initiative in the form of Asian conferences. Then in 1995, Afro-Asian Conference. There they conceived the idea of non-alignment movement, and finally in 1961, formation of NAM at Belgrade. So we mentioned in the last lecture about all of this. Clear? Along with that, we discussed the other aspects of NAM as well. For example, we mentioned that basic features of NAM. Yes, in the last lecture we mentioned the features of NAM. And NAM's features are basically based on universal principles like peace, independent outlook, clear? Peace, independent outlook, economic development. Then we mention about national interest. So we all mentioned these things. Then along with that, one more thing we discuss, that is related with the how it was beneficial for. And yes, one more feature I just want to mention, I forgot to mention, that is disarmament and anti-domination. Anti-domination in the form of colonialism. As they were against colonialism, they were against racism, they were against the new colonialism. So anti-domination they were. So these are the key features of now. We already discussed in the last lecture. Then when later on what we mentioned that how it is beneficial, means what exactly it is. First I just want to explain how exactly it is. So we mentioned about it is not a alternative, means when we mention the third world, it is not a challenge to the first world or second world. It's not the challenge, it's basically alternative to Cold War politics. It's alternative to the Cold War politics. They were not the third front in front of them. Clear? So we mentioned that. Then we mentioned how it's beneficial for third world countries. In that we mention how it is beneficial because it represents a two-third population of UN. It gives them majority. Yes, it gives them strength, recognition. We mention all how it is beneficial for third world because of the majority, because of the strength. It gives them recognition at the international platform. They force, they compel the master powers like means other colonial powers like Britain, France, then Spain, Portugal to leave their territory. They forced them for decolonization. They were act against the apartheid in South Africa. So all we discuss how it was beneficial for the world. Then we discuss about how it was beneficial for India. Then we mentioned that it gave India an independent outlook. Along with that, it gave India to scope to maintain separate relation. Means India can do the follow the bilateral relation. We mentioned about India, Russia. At the same time, India, USA. We mentioned that how India maintained that. Along with that, how it was beneficial means after end of Cold War. After end of Cold War, it gives India this advantage that India directly established a bilateral relation with many countries. So it was beneficial for India as well to follow the independent foreign policy. Then we mentioned the significance of it. Then we mentioned about whether NAM is still relevant or not. That's the question. And this is the most important question and we discuss in detail. And the crux of that question I just want to share with you that NAM, as I mentioned in this lecture only, NAM is based on universal principle. It is not based for any means, it is not formed for any specific purpose. It is based on universal principle like end of colonialism. But can we say end of exploitation? It's not there. Exploitation is there, so NAM is relevant. Yes. End of war. Does it mean end of the conflict? No. Then NAM is relevant. Clear? Along with that, every country should follow every country should follow independent foreign policy. NAM is still relevant. So NAM is based on universal principle. So NAM is relevant irrespective of NAM is relevant irrespective of all. Okay. So it is based on the universal principle. So NAM is still relevant. Next. Now we are going to discuss the phases of Indian foreign policy. Now voice is clear. As Preeti said that voice is low. Yes, now is it audible to all of you? Noise was good in world history lecture. Okay. Just let me check. Now, is it okay? Yes, everyone. Now, am I audible to all of you clearly? Yes, everyone. Am I audible to all of you clearly? Okay. Okay. So, today we are going to discuss the Indian foreign policy's phases. As Indian foreign policy also designed and it changes its shape according to the time. For example, after independence, when we designed the policy, it was the first phase, the phase 1 of Indian foreign policy 1947 to 1962. As you know that this phase was the first phase of independence and this phase was basically dominated by Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. So, and it is said that this phase was mostly, in this phase, foreign policy was mostly focused on internationalism, idealism, and non-alignment. Clear? So, there are many critics who criticizes Nehru for this idealism. So, yesterday only we mentioned Nehru's idealism was based on Nehru's realism because at that time we were not economically sound, we were not financially strong. So that's why we took our foreign policy based on ethics and principle. Clear? So it was basically based on realism. So what exactly the case when we designed our foreign policy? What were the factors responsible at that time? So in 1947 to 62, this phase, during this phase, our foreign policy basically designed on the basis of these four components. What exactly it is? It is first thing legacy of Indian history and Indian national movement. What it means, as you know, we had a colonial past. Clear? So India, we don't have a practical experience of democracy till 1947. For to some extent, we can say we had a first-hand experience, but it not in real sense. Now, an independent nation born in 1947, and they have to design their foreign policy. So, what are the factors we considered while designing the foreign policy, and which factors influence the Indian foreign policy? We are going to discuss. The first we mentioned legacy of Indian history and Indian national movement. What do you mean by in legacy of Indian history? Indian national movement, anyone can say legacy of Indian national movement. But what it means, the legacy of Indian history as well. Yes, please let me know what exactly it means to you. What it means to you. What do you think? What legacy we carried while designing the foreign policy? Yes, please answer. Feel free. Hmm? None of you. I'm really surprised. None of you are having answered. As you know that India is land of Buddha. India is land of Mahavira. India is the land of Gandhi. India is the land of Ashoka. Don't you think so? These all are representative of peace. India is very well known. Yes, exactly. Non-violence, peace, non-violence. India is very well known in the world for non-aggression. Do we have any reference of it that we just like Alexander? No. Most of the countries in the world did the means followed the policy of expansion other than their territory, but India never had such thing. So this is our legacy. We people love peace. We followed the policy of non-violence. So this is our historical legacy is with us. Everybody knows India just because of this thing. Clear? So while designing the foreign policy, these things what comes under our mind, or we can say they guided us to design the foreign policy. Clear? So legacy of Indian history is clear to you. Next, legacy of national movement. What kind of legacy of national movement? What kind of? What do you think? What legacy of national movement? Fight against injustice. Very well known example, that is fight against colonialism. Fight against colonialism. Against fight against exploitation. Fight against discrimination. Yes, don't you think so? That these points are the legacy of Indian national movement. Yes, guys and girls, what do you think? Don't you think? Yes, Sankalpa said the same thing. Fight against exploitation and colonialism. Yes, we mentioned here. Fight against colonialism, fight against exploitation, fight against discrimination. Basically, this is all about injustice. Means whatever the form of injustice is there, Indian national movement were fighting against them. And the colonialism, exploitation, discrimination is were the part of it. So our fight was basically, what do you think? Our fight was based on war or or based on non-violence. Yes, what do you think? Of course, common sense. Indian freedom struggle was completely based on non-violence. So whenever we are going to think about the fighting against injustice, this is a mean that we are going to fight against them non-violently. That means democratically. That means democratically. Clear? So Indian freedom struggle was based on the idea of democracy, based on the idea of non-violence, based on the idea of fighting against injustice. So don't you think so while designing the Indian foreign policy in the phase one, that these things guided us? Yes, so that's why we mention legacy of Indian history and legacy of Indian national movement were the guiding force. in the first phase of foreign policy design. Clear? Second, developments after Second World War also important while designing the foreign policy. What it means, developments after Second World War. What it means, what kind of developments? Hmm? What kind of developments? Yes, be fast. Or there were no such a development after Second World War. People were happy. Ashwini said industries. Sankalpa said era of Cold War and grouping. Yes. What about others? What kind of developments? Yes, you all are too smart. You want to be a bureaucrat. So please use your brain. Race to be superpower. Preeti said Cold War. Yes, yes, yes. You're on the right track. All of you are on the right track. Basically, it was a Cold War era. Two superpower, USA and USSR. Ideological conflict. That's the one aspect. The development after Second World War. That's the one aspect. Another important thing is neocolonialism. Am I right or wrong? Development after Second World War, that is Cold War, USA, USSR. Neocolonialism, it is a phase of decolonization. Yes. So decolonization in means the previous countries means earlier they were the slaves of superpowers like Britain, France, Portugal and all. Now they are newly independent countries. So we have to think about it as well. Yes, Sankalpa, you're right. Ashwini, you are right. Nuclear race means armament race was going on. Then, along with that, race in field of science because yes, race in the science, as Ashwini said, modern high-tech weapons. Vicky said arm race. Yes, we are going to discuss that only. So it was that era where we have to deal with all these things. Clear? So while designing the foreign policy, we have to take care of all these things. Clear? Yes, space, the field of science. That's why I'm saying that. So as you know, all that Cold War, we're having so much problems and all. But one good thing, just because of Cold War, many scientific technologies developed within that short interval of time. Just imagine the limit, means 1945 to 1991. That is around a period of how much? 45, 46 years. Within that period, we reached to moon. Yes, we developed GPS. We developed the space shuttle. So just imagine. Yes, exam. Yes, Preeti also said the right thing. Yes, development after that it is NATO. That is a Cold War politics we mentioned. NATO, Warsaw Pact. Example, yes, these are the example of grouping. Sankalpa and Preeti said the same thing. Yes, exactly. So the development after Second World War also we have to take care of it while designing the foreign policy during that phase. Clear? So first, legacy of Indian history and Indian national movement. Second, development after Second World War. Now, the requirements of newly independent nation. That means our domestic requirement. That means need of country. Okay, it's okay if you design the foreign policy with your past, means after taking care of your past. You are going to design the foreign policy with respect to international affairs. But at the same time, if you neglected the national interest, then do you really think so that foreign policy is going to work out well? That foreign policy is going to yield positive results? No. Obvious foreign policy is not going to work out if you are negating the national interest, if you are negating the demands of your nation. So, while designing the foreign policy, we have to take care of domestic requirement of that time. So, we design the foreign policy according to it, as we mentioned, this newly independent nation state. You know that when India got the freedom is having partition included in that. We lost Pakistan, and along with that, this newly independent nation state waged war against India in 1947 only. Pakistan got the freedom because of India, and this country in 1947 attacked us. So don't you think so? While designing the foreign policy, we have to take care of our neighborhoods as well. Along with that, we have to take care of Nepal, Bhutan. Why it is so? Because pre-independence also Indians and our colonial masters have a good relation with them. So while designing the foreign policy, we have to take care of our neighborhood states as well. Clear? So that is the domestic requirement of that time. Clear? Next, an important thing, that is vision of national leaders also important. And while designing this foreign policy in this phase, vision of national leaders important, and most dominant figure was Jawaharlal Nehru. Another important person which influenced the foreign policy was Gandhiji, but through his ideology. Through his ideology, Gandhi influenced the foreign policy, but Jawaharlal Nehru dominated the foreign policy because of his vision of peaceful coexistence, vision of world should be the better place, and that's why he played an important role. Clear? So his vision was very clear regarding that. So these are the 4 points through which the first phase of Indian national or the first phase of Indian foreign policy design. Ashwini, what she said, sir, can you please repeat the third point? Yes, this is the third point. Yes, I'm going to repeat this point. What exactly? The domestic requirement of country. The domestic means requirement of newly independent state as India become a nation state. So what's the demand of that nation? We have to think on all the aspects, that is political, social and economic. socio-politico-economic angle we have to consider while designing the foreign policy. So domestic requirements are important for us. As I said, if you negated this particular thing, means domestic requirement, and you're focusing over the history, you're focusing on international relation, international affairs, and if you're negating this thing, then what's the use of your foreign policy? It will benefit the other countries. Your vision, your ideas will help the other countries in the world. But what about you? In the foreign policy, the most important determinant is the national interest. In the last lecture only we mentioned the national interest. And if you're going to negate the national interest, negation of national interest means negation of domestic requirements. So this negation of domestic requirement is having part like this: political, social and economic. These angles we have to check, and at the time of independence we find out this thing, means what is the requirement of India as a nation state. So in that I mentioned that India got freedom, but at the same time India got the freedom. At the same time India faces the partition, and in the same year in 1947 Pakistan invaded India. So while designing the foreign policy, don't you think so that we have to take care of it? While designing the foreign policy, we have to take care of it. Why? Because the dispute started between India and Pakistan. So we should not have to adopt an idealistic approach with Pakistan. Okay, that is the domestic requirement. We should not be too much idealist with Pakistan, but at the same time, we don't want any enemy in our neighborhood. So the countries like Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, etc., we have to develop a friendly relation with them. Why? It is a domestic demand, because India is always have a means always wants a good neighborhood, so that to maintain peace and prosperity. So that is the domestic demand, that we have to maintain a good relation with them so that there will not be any enmity. Okay, that is the domestic demand in terms of I'm talking about political terms. At the same time, if we are going to consider the economic terms, then we have to think about it. Means, for example, as India in Pakistan is having enmity, India and Pakistan is having enmity in 1947. But you know that it was a part of India only. So our tradition, our culture, as well as food habits are same, or were same, are same. So if we faces any scarcity at our place, for example, if we faces the scarcity of wheat, onion, tomato, anything, don't you think it is very easy for us to take that from Pakistan rather than importing from USA? Yes, don't you think so? Clear. So on one side, Pakistan is our enemy, but on the other side, in terms of economy, we have to take help of that country as well, because it is a trade. It is a question of money, and we want to save our money. So it's easy for us to take anything from Pakistan rather than from USA. Clear? So that's the way I'm saying that while designing the foreign policy, domestic requirements are there and we have to take care of it. Now the point is clear to all of you. Good. Very good. Next, we already mentioned the visions of leaders like Nehru. Now we are moving towards next point. That is, as we mentioned, the phase 1947 to 1962 was completely dominated by Nehru's vision because he was a prime minister as well as minister of external affairs. Clear? So in this phase, we already mentioned in the last lecture when we discussed about NAM, we already discussed that pre-independence, this happened in April 1947. This Asian Relation Conference organized at New Delhi in April 1947, that means pre-independence time, means before India got independence, India played an important role in foreign policy. So this foreign policy was dominated by Nehru's vision, and one of the best example is Asian Relation Conference, and it was there for decolonization. It was there to strengthen unity among newly independent states. Clear? So, what we have done during this time, we are going to mention here the same thing. That is, we mentioned that Asian Relation Conference 1947 for decolonization members of Asian countries so that they do not fall into trap of neocolonialism. Okay. In this phase, another important aspect that is India took active part in Afro-Asian Conference Bandung 1955. In NAM, we mention it in detail that how they conceived the idea of NAM here and finally how it is there. Okay? So these 2 points we already discussed. Next important thing for us, that is India supports the idea of plebiscite. India supports the idea of plebiscite for peaceful resolution of the disputes between any countries. Yes, as you know that if you share the border with any country, there is a possibility that you may have a dispute. And along with that, when the colonial masters ruled Asia and Africa, at that time they divide the country according to their own convenience. It's not the case that they divide the country according to the division, the geographical division. It was not the case. For their own convenience, they divide the country. So what happened after that when these countries left their colonies? The problem with the successor state was the same. What to do with that? As the border dispute was the most important problem in front of them. What to do? As for example, let's take example that India, Pakistan, two independent country and one more independent country was present at that time, that was Kashmir. It was a native state. Yes, it was a native state. So such kind of dispute was there. What to do with that? Even the Junagadh is the best example. The Junagadh, everybody knew about that incident. So India advocated that and India solved this problem of Junagadh with help of plebiscite. India wants to solve that problem of Jammu and Kashmir with help of plebiscite. But Pakistan attacked and everything changed. So it is not just the case between India and Pakistan. India support this idea of plebiscite for peaceful resolution of the dispute. And in the plebiscite, who is having the authority? People and not state. Means it should be the people's choice whether they want to be a part of any country or not. It should not be dictated to them. Clear? It should not be dictated. So it shows the democratic approach of Indian foreign policy at that time. It shows the democratic approach, means this gives a right to the people what to do. They have to decide their own future. So this concept was basically promoted by India in the world, or we can say the in worldwide, and presented in international platforms. Okay. Next, India took the issue of Pakistan's aggression over Kashmir to United Nations for peaceful resolution of issue. As this also shows the democratic approach of India during this period. Clear? This shows the democratic approach. And you know that Nehru was highly criticized because of this issue. Means why he took this thing, as he was the foreign minister. He knew the situation better than us. Clear? India was having different opinion about United Nations at that time. They thought that this is a neutral body and they are going to help us. And here we mentioned in this point only what we want peaceful resolution of dispute. It was not difficult for India to defeat Pakistan at that time. But still we thought that instead of war, peaceful resolution of any dispute is a best option, and it will end the enmity between any country. So when Pakistan invaded Kashmir basically, Kashmir, and India helped Kashmir so that Kashmir became a part of India. So India want to solve this problem. So India adopted a democratic approach and they took this issue to United Nations for peaceful resolution. Clear? So these are the aspects. Next, in this period, in this first period, 1947 to 1962, these are the three key features of Indian foreign policy. Like India played a significant role in multilateral institutions. Like 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 three key features of Indian foreign policy during this period 1947 to 1962. And the first we mentioned that India played a significant role in multilateral institutions. Hmm. Yes, Sankalpa, Preeti, Yashwini, Bhanupriya, Nisha. Yes. What do you think? Where India played a role? United Nations. Okay. How? As Ashwini said, United Nations. How? As you are the student of history as well. Yes. Yes, Sankalpa, United Nations. WTO. But WTO, don't you think so? Was not exist during this time. WTO was not there. Yes. Let's take, as you said, United Nations. So I'm asking how, where. how, where, and if it is possible, when. As Sankalpa said, India was one of the founding members of United Nations. Yes, exactly. It is the case. And do you know one more thing? I just want to add more information to you. India sent two delegations. India sent two delegations at the time of foundation of United Nations. So maybe you are thinking like, why two? एक देश एक राष्ट्र. Why two delegations? So if you just go through the United Nations, you will get to know that United Nations formed before independence. Before independence. So one delegation is from British India, another delegation from Indian National Congress. Clear? As I agree with all of you that India played role in United Nations, I am asking how and where, and if possible, when. Participation in any organization is important, that's okay. But you should know that one particular thing is there, that India participated in that and they played an important role in that. You should know that. That's why I'm asking you. You are the student of history. UPSC asks you to read the history. So that's why I'm asking this question. In international relations, where India played a significant role in multinational institutions. Just think about it. You know the answer. All of you. Whenever I'm going to tell you that yes, this is the answer, and you're like, oh, I know. So it should not be the case that I'm going to tell you the answer and you are going to think. If you wait for some time, I was ready to give you. It should not be the case. I'm giving you the line. Please, 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 please. Yes, Ashwini, we already mentioned here the protagonist of non-alignment. That is the case. Naam is there. You're not getting my question. I'm going to repeat my question once again, as most of you said that India played a significant role in multilateral institution, and you gave me the name of that multilateral institution, United Nations. Agree. Agree. I agree with you. India played a significant role in United Nations. But my next question is how, where, and if possible, tell me when. This is important. Whenever the you're preparing for civil services examination, you should not mug up the things. Clear? It should not be the exam of mugging up things. In this examination, you have to use your brain. You have to analyze the thing. Clear? So while reading United Nations, while reading Indian participation in United Nations, you know that India participated. India was is active participant in United Nations. But where? Yes, Preeti said against apartheid. Yes, it was there. It was there in non-alignment movement. It was a main agenda of non-alignment movement, the decolonization, anti-apartheid, and all. You're not getting my question. I am specifically asking you about United Nations, as you said that India is played an active role, significant role in multilateral institutions. As Vikramaditya said, by taking Kashmir issue into United Nations. Yes, it was there. We already discussed, but this point is not related with that. India's problem, India take there. This is basically the world was facing the problem and India sorted out the problem. That's why we mentioned significant role in that. Now you're getting my question? India played a significant role. यार इतना पता है फिर it's okay. Have you ever heard in your life peacekeeping mission? Yes, have you ever heard about that India sent their troops to United Nations for peacekeeping mission? Do you know that such thing is there? Or first time you have heard that okay, peacekeeping mission. Nice. This is a very common thing. India played a significant role in peacekeeping mission. You know that India sent their troops to Congo. How it played? Because India is a strong believer of idea of peace. So India sent their troops to maintain the peace in Congo. That is the one thing. Another most important thing, that is India played role in Korean War. How it is so? India presented the idea, India presented the formula of division of Korea, and India presented the idea of division of Korea, and along with that Indian army was present there. Don't you think so? It is for peacekeeping mission. We suffered a lot because of the partition, and we don't want other countries to suffer the same pain. So that's why when India presented that formula in United Nations to sort it out the problem of Korea, then they request that Indian troops should send there. Some of you may aware of the word, some of you may aware not word, person, that General Cariappa was sent there, and because of India's formula, Korea was divided into North Korea and South Korea. Yes, Vikramaditya, what you said, but sir, intervention in the Korean Wars is fully dedicated to Nam. As you know that UN means just normal sense. Let's take example of United Nation and Nam. Tell me one thing, which one is more powerful, United Nation or Nam? Which one? United Nation or Nam? Who is going to implement this partition? Who is going to implement this partition? United Nation only. Why? Because the question of Korean War is went to United Nation. And India presented that formula, as some of you quite aware of this person as well, Krishna Menon. Krishna Menon was a person who presented that formula there, and because of that, partition of Korea into two, north, south, and along with that, over this border, Indian army was present, and we are proud of it that Indian army presented the best example for the world how peacefully divided the country, peacefully divided the disputed country, and world appreciated the role of India army that time as well. Clear? So don't you think so that India played a significant role in that? Clear? So such example are there. India participated in multilateral institutions. United Nations is one among them. Clear? So I'm mentioning one among them. There are many institutions. So India basically believed the multilateralism at that time. Clear? Yes. Now you got it. Next, India is a protagonist of non-alignment. Of course, it is a basic part of Indian foreign policy, and we know that. We mentioned now. We are the protagonist of non-alignment movement. We are the founder members of NAM. Clear? So second point is clear, and I don't want to explain it because yesterday only I mentioned NAM in detail. Clear? The third thing, that is India made a significant contribution in the process of decolonization. This is the third feature of Indian foreign policy during this period. Do you have any example of it? Do you have any example that India played a significant role in the process of decolonization? Hmm. One thing is very clear that India always opposes this thing, that is anti-domination in all sense. Decolonization is a process of domination. Clear? So India contributed in decolonization. So I want any example. Do you know any example that India contributed? There are many examples, don't worry. It's not just a case India just supported this claim and India rejected. No. Wherever the decolonization process is there, India supported that idea of decolonization. India strongly presented the view against the decolonization in United Nations over all international platform as well. Any example of it? In Vietnam case, India played a significant role. India contributed, as you know, that initially. In world history, I'm going to discuss this thing in detail. Don't worry about it. But just a normal thing. Initially, it was a French colony. Later on, it was dominated by USA. How and why I'm going to mention in world history lecture. So, in the decolonization of Vietnam, India supported the Vietnam under Ho Chi Minh. India supported the idea of Ho Chi Minh of independence. India supported the Vietnam in all international platforms, and when the process started, the process of discussion, process of formula, when the process started, India actively participated in that. India actively participated in that. Clear? India also raised voice against the colonial domination over African nations. India raised voice against colonial domination in African nations. They condemned it through all international platforms. Clear? That is a significant contribution of it. These are the three key features of Indian foreign policy during this period. First, plays significant role in multilateral institution, means active participation in the working of multilateral institution. Second, protagonist of non-alignment, policy of non-alignment, so that it should not fall into trap of neo-colonialism, that none of the countries should fall in the trap of neo-colonialism to avoid neo-colonialism. And third, where there is a colonies present, means basically the dominance was there, India took active part in that, and they condemned the colonial masters and pressurized them through all international platforms to pursue the policy of exit. Clear? So these are the three most important feature of Indian foreign policy during this period. Next important thing, yes, next important thing, that is Panchashil. This word Panchashil, five principles. Panchashil. So this policy is basically a policy of peaceful coexistence. Panchashil policy is a policy of peaceful coexistence. And this is very famous, and Nehru also criticizes, means critics of Nehru always criticizes Nehru because of this policy. And this policy doesn't have any flaws. But what happened? After signing this policy, after agreeing with the Panchashil, still China invaded India. So that's why it was a setback for India's foreign policy at that time. So what exactly the Panchashil? The Panchashil is basically a treaty between India and China. We know that India and China shares border with each other. China, a newly independent nation state, that is People's Republic of China under Mao, a newly independent nation state. Along with that, as we got independence in 47, China 49, and our policy always, Indian foreign policy is based on the policy of peace, non-violence. And Nehru, as he was an architect of Indian foreign policy, he doesn't want any enmity. He doesn't want a war. He don't want any enmity. He doesn't want any enmity with neighboring countries. Clear? He doesn't want any enmity with the neighboring country. Why it is so? Because as Indian aim was very clear, what India wants? India wants economic development. As India wants economic development. And do you know that in 1947, our condition was worst in all sense. Indian condition was worst in all sense, as we had a legacy of colonization. Along with that, agriculture sector was in worst phase. Along with that, partition, clear. In short, we don't have money, no sufficient money is available with us. In short, we don't have sufficient money at that time. So what to do? So idea of India at that time was clear, that is economic development. And you know that in 1947 only Indo-Pak war was there. In 1947 only Indo-Pak was there. So India at that time, basically while designing this policy, Nehru doesn't want any further rival. Clear. So that's why we adopted a peace policy with China. That's why we adopted a Panchashil policy, peace policy with China. So what exactly this policy? This policy was based. Yes, everyone. Yes, everyone. Extremely sorry. Somehow I lost the connection and all. Yes. So am I audible to all of you? Am I audible to all of you? Okay. So as I said, that these five principles of peaceful coexistence is applicable with your neighborhood as well. These are because these are based on universal ideas. These are based on universal ideas. How it is so? Let's check. Means basically, what I say to you that your neighbor intervening in your life, they always want to interfere in your life. And I mentioned the example. They are going to ask you what you're doing, why you're, how much time you required for preparation. The same way, if you are a girl, they are going to irritate you. First thing, they had a problem that you are studying after your graduation. Second thing, they are quite worried about your future. So such kind of irritation is always there with you. So this agreement can be helpful for your point of view as well. So what kind of it exactly? The first point in Panchashil, mutual respect of each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Don't you think so? It is based on very basic idea, mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. That means whatever the borders are there, just respect it. Whatever the borders are there. Because if you respect each other's territories, if you respect the means each other's identity, then there will not be any problem. So they talk about mutual respect with each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Means you have to accept this country as a sovereign state, you have to accept this country as a sovereign state. Next, mutual non-aggression. Don't you think so? When you respect each other's territory, each other's sovereignty, This will be a logical step. Non-aggression. Yes, it's very simple. If you respect the territory, means you considered, okay, this is your part. Why you want to take that part? Why you want that part? You don't want, because you know that that part is basically belongs to other country. So this led to second point, mutual non-aggression. Third, mutual non-interference. Yes, this is most important for your neighborhood as well. Non-interference in internal affairs. Internal affairs means, for example, this is India, and suppose our farmers, not suppose, right now our farmers are protesting against the bill. You know that. Don't you think so? This is our internal problem. Yes, it's our internal problem. But somehow China said that why India is not handling the problem of farmers very well. Don't you think so? India is going to ask the question, who are you and why are you taking interest? Clear? So when one particular country is taking interest in that other particular country, it will compromise the sovereignty of that country, because internal matters are their own problem. Why you're going to take care of them? If you want, just look at the problems you are facing in your own country. Clear? So when so when we respect the each other's territory, when we follow the non-aggression policy, so this is a logical step that non-interference in internal affairs is important, because when you are not going to interfere in that particular country's affair, then your relation will not be spoiled. They will be based on this mutual respect only. Clear? So this is the third aspect or third principle of Panchashil, because Panchashil is what exactly? Peaceful coexistence, and these are the five important things required for peaceful coexistence. Do not mug up the things. Most of the students just mug up the thing and try to recollect it while writing exam. It will not be. Use your common sense. As I mentioned, it is based on universal principle. It is applicable everywhere. If you don't know, if you don't know, then just imagine what will be the situation, you will get the answer. Just imagine your situation with your neighbors. Clear? So these are very simple things. Mutual respect for each other territory, integrity and sovereignty. Next, mutual aggression. Sorry, mutual non-aggression. Next, mutual non-interference in internal affairs. Fourth, equality and cooperation for mutual benefits. As you are signing the pact with that country, then this aspect should be there. Mutual benefits with each other. And how you can drive the mutual benefits? When you can cooperate with each other. Clear? So equality, and the relation should be on the basis of equality. That is India, China, equal. It should not be the case that India is here and China is here and they are going to dictate. This is not acceptable. This is an acceptable thing. And when you are going to keep the mutual respect, when you consider other as the equal. So this is the fourth thing, equality and cooperation for mutual benefits. That is the fourth principle of Panchashil. And the fifth, that is very well known, peaceful coexistence. Peaceful coexistence. Don't you think so? If any country follow all these five principles very well, don't you think they are going to lead economic development? Means, don't you think they are going to achieve the economic development of that country? Why it is so? Because with help of these five principles, peace is going to establish peace, and this peace created a favorable condition for economic development. Yes, am I right or wrong? Am I right or wrong? If any country follow these five principles, then that leads to peace between these two countries. These two countries cooperate with each other, and when they are cooperating with each other, when they don't have any dispute or any issue, then peace will definitely going to prevail. And when peace is there, economic development is there, and when economic development is there, prosperity is there. Clear? Prosperity is there. So this is the basic principle followed by first phase of Indian foreign policy. Let me revise whatever we discussed in the first phase of foreign policy. Here, the first phase of foreign policy, we discuss about that how foreign policy design, what were the basic principles, that four factors we mentioned. In that four factor, we mentioned legacy. Yes, we mentioned legacy. We mentioned situation after Second World War. Yes, we mentioned about domestic demand, and then we mentioned about the vision of leaders. Clear? So this is thing. Second, we mentioned how Nehru designed the foreign policy. We mentioned that. Next, we mentioned how India played an important role in international affairs with help of three principles, three aspects. That is multilateralism. Then we mentioned about protagonist of non-alignment, and then we mentioned take active part in the process of decolonization. Clear? So these are the three phases we mentioned. Then we mentioned that India signed a peaceful agreement with China based on Panchashil, and this is a universal idea, but Nehruvian foreign policy received a setback when China invaded India. Clear? So after this invasion of China into 1962, India started thinking on different lines. As in this lecture I mentioned the first point only. Yes, I'm going to show you. Yes, we mentioned that Indian foreign policy in first phase based on internationalism, idealism and non-alignment. But after this 62, India changed her policy. India changed her policy. Clear? Yes, everyone, is that clear? for all of you. Any question? Yes, any questions? Yes, please, if you have any question, please let me know. Any question, any query, any doubt, any difficulty? No. Okay, so I hope you understand it very well how the first phase of Indian foreign policy design, first phase of Indian foreign policy design. Clear? So in tomorrow's lecture, we are going to discuss the phase 2, that is 1962 to 1991. In tomorrow's lecture, we are going to discuss 62 to 91 period. How India changed its policy, whether they dropped, means this can be the whether they dropped, that is India dropped NAM, means non-alignment, whether India dropped basic principles. So we are going to discuss all these things, whether they dropped it or whether they continue it or whether they continue these principles with some changes. We are going to discuss in tomorrow's lecture. Clear? So those who want to join me, then this is my Telegram address. You can join me, Unacademy underscore Harshv10. This is my address, Telegram address. You can join me here only, and if you are having any doubt, any query, you can ask me here. So I hope you understand it very well. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your valuable time. Tomorrow we will meet at the same time, 11 o'clock. Yes. Have a good day. Great day.